Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Classical Conversations. I'm Jess Slace, the Vice President of Artistic Administration for the Nashville Symphony. Very glad to see you again in the new year, and welcome Giancarlo Guerrero, our music director. Hi, Giancarlo.
Hi, Jess. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Thanks so much. Well, what a week we're having in Nashville. We're covered in snow, which is very unusual. Things are a little bit shut down. We unfortunately had to cancel today, Friday, the concert, but we're very much hoping to be back with everyone Saturday and Sunday. So I'm just going to let you take it away and share this great program that you had planned to start the new year off.
Thank you, Jess. Well, it's a wonderful opportunity to, warm ourselves up with wonderful music. And this is our first chance actually getting the full orchestra back together for a classical program, which I am particularly very excited, even though the weather seems to have different ideas for all of us. But as I said, nothing can stop the music. And this program is perfect to come in and try to not only stay warm, but more importantly, celebrate wonderful music in our beautiful Schermerhorn Symphony Center and our fabulous Nashville Symphony. We are starting with a beautiful overture by the great Croatian composer, Franz von Suppe. And yes, Croatia can claim him just because where he was born, nowadays that is part of the country of Croatia, and they do claim him as one of their own, even though a lot of the music that he wrote was very Viennese and using a lot of the waltzes and the beautiful styles from that part of the world. And Franz von Suppe was mostly an operetta composer, and he wrote quite a few of them, over 40 of them, that were mostly premiered all around what is now Austria, and utilizing just very, very simple stories of love and jealousy and funny situations. And they were intended for an audience that basically just wanted to come and have a wonderful evening out. And most of those operettas nowadays are not really performed anywhere except the overtures. The overtures have become very, very popular. And we can thank the Disney company for them, because in many of those cartoons, they utilize quite a few of those melodies of these operettas, more famously the Light Cavalry Overture or the Morning, Midday, and Evening in Vienna. And the overture we're performing this weekend, which is the overture to the Dichter und Bauer, which is the Poet and Peasant, which was one of his most popular operettas from 1846. It's a very simple story of a poet that falls in love with a young woman, moves to a different city, and basically is vying for her attention against another man who happens to be a peasant, a little bit more simple man. But in the end, the whole story, everybody ends up getting what they want, and everybody lives happily ever after. Very simple. But this overture, which is about 10 minutes long, really captures I think most of the most famous melodies from the operetta, and particularly there's a beautiful cello solo in the opening, which is very, very recognizable, which basically tells the story of the poet, basically who early on falls in love with this woman, but then eventually connects with her again and marries her and lives happily ever after. There's a can also in this overture, which is very boisterous, very happy and very dance-like. And of course, as you can expect in any Viennese piece, there is a waltz, a wonderful waltz in the middle as well. So this is a wonderful little piece that I think captures the genius of this wonderful composer, Franz von Suppe. After that, we go on to the Mozart Concerto in C minor, number 24, which is late in Mozart's time. And this was perhaps the zenith of Mozart's creative genius. Around the time that he wrote this concerto in 1786, he was working on The Marriage of Figaro, the great opera. And within a almost 5-year period, he wrote 13 piano concertos, mostly for himself. And this one in particular was one that he premiered. It's one of the few that we actually know when it premiered, and with Mozart playing it himself. But this piece is very unusual from all of the other 27 concertos that Mozart wrote for a couple of reasons. First, it is in minor key, in C minor. And out of the 27, there's only one other concerto that utilizes the minor key. So the piece is a little bit more dramatic. It's a little bit more serious. There's a little bit more of heaviness to this wonderful concerto. Also, the orchestra is quite large. Here, he utilizes full woodwind sections, as well as 2 French horns and 2 trumpets and timpani. What's unusual, though, is that the clarinets at the time were not still pretty much standard part of the orchestra, and yet Mozart includes them in this concerto. And this is the only concerto that Mozart wrote that actually utilizes oboes and clarinets at the same time. So as you can imagine, the woodwind section is very much prominent in this concerto. The piece, in my opinion, almost is on the borderline of being a sinfonia concertante, which is a concerto for many different instruments. So the piano, of course, is the leading voice, but at times it almost sounds like an oboe concerto and a flute concerto, and flute and oboe and piano concerto. So it's a wonderful combination, unusual yet very virtuosic, not only for the soloist but for the pianist as well. The piece as well, to begin, which begins kind of dark and very serious, very quiet, very chromatic. Within the first 12 measures of the piece, he actually writes all 12 notes of the chromatic scales into the melody, which makes it sound quite unstable at times. But for a piece that comes from the 18th century, quite unusual. But only Mozart can pull it off in a way that it still sounds very much classical, very much in the style, but at the same time, very improvisatory. As you can imagine, Mozart being on the piano, it is very likely that even as he was playing, like a jazz player would do nowadays, he was probably improvising. The second movement is really where you get a lot of that beautiful woodwind writing. Becomes basically a conversation between the pianist and the woodwind section. What is so interesting is that the strings, which are normally the most important section in the classical orchestra, almost seem to take almost an entirely accompaniment feature to this. So this is a great piece that will showcase not only the soloist George Lee, but as well our wonderful members of our woodwind section. The last movement, unusual in the sense that it is a theme and variation. You get a very nice minor key, simple theme that over the course of the last movement basically goes through different metamorphoses. Sometimes it goes into major key. Sometimes actually it becomes faster. So Mozart in many ways experiments with a simple melody and basically trying to surprise us of where he's going with it. At the same time, the orchestra kind of leading the way and the piano is almost serving as an accompaniment feature to all of this. So when you hear this wonderful piece, it's almost very experimental of what Mozart would have done had he lived longer. Remember that he died in his early 30s, and you can only imagine what he would have achieved had he lived another 20 years. Because already with this piece, he was already pushing the envelope in what was expected of the piano concertos of the time. The last piece of the program is one of my absolute favorite works, is the Antonin Dvorak Symphony No. 8 in G major. What people normally associate Dvorak, of course, is his symphony that came after No. 9, which is the New World Symphony, which he wrote as a postcard when he moved to New York and was feeling very homesick, and wrote this symphony in the United States as a way of almost trying to reconnect with his roots from what is now the Czech Republic, Bohemia at the time. And this piece, No. 8, which was written in 1889, is incredibly connected to his Czech roots. The entire melodies, all of the styles are connected to that part of the world in the dances and the melodies. And it is very cheerful, very happy piece, even to the point that although it begins with this beautiful solemn melody with the cellos and the French horns, immediately you hear this beautiful flute cadenza almost that resembles like a little bird singing. And then eventually that becomes the main theme of the first movement that develops in many ways throughout different sections of the orchestra. The second movement being a beautiful adagio, but still has a wonderful, hopeful, and cheerful spirit to it. The third movement is this beautiful allegretto grazioso, which is this just elegant, I would call it Czech waltz that at times is going to have you, I'm sure, tapping your foot. And the last movement, it is this beautiful theme and variations once again that Dvorak gives us this one theme that just keeps coming back, but with little different aspects to it. Sometimes making it in terms of lighter and major key, and sometimes in very dramatic and minor key. So this is a wonderful piece that I think in many ways captures what we're all trying to achieve, and hopeful and happy. And for me, as I said, is one of my favorite ones. One that I have not done many times, but every time I get to conduct it, it's a wonderful day for me.
Thank you so much, Giancarlo. Yeah, it's been a lot to look forward to, and we look forward to sharing it with you this weekend. Thanks for your time. I also want to take a moment to thank Sally Levine and the Lawrence S. Levine Memorial Concert for their support of George Lee's appearance this weekend. And we hope you all are staying safe and healthy and warm this week, and look forward to seeing you back at the Schermerhorn soon. All of the details about tickets, times, and more can be found at nashvillesymphony.org.